Thank you, sir. So the question that you guys, I'm sure, are all asking is, all right, well, what does that mean for your business? And excuse me, the interesting segue for me there is I often hear from a lot of businesses, well, I don't know if this applies to my business because we do this or we do that or we're special or we're unique in this particular way. These are businesses that have television broadcast towers and radio stations, and this is still important to them. If this is as important as you're hearing these guys describe to a TV and radio company, imagine how important it is to most businesses who don't have those assets. It essentially breaks down to 4 principles that you have to think about. And that is, first and foremost, you have to be able to be found. Go back to that person who's heard your radio spots or seen your TV ads, wants to find you. There is a computer standing in between that person and you, usually starting with a Google search box. Can they find you? When they find you, do you provide quality, consistent content that helps them understand from the basics, where is your business, to are you open, how do I contact you, all the way through to do people like you and what do you do? Do you distribute that email using that content, using things like email, social media to help take that good content and get it in the hands of more people? And then can you turn that content into leads to get more people to do the things you actually really want them to do, which is to call your business or to walk into it. The place where all of this starts, sometimes referred to as the sum of all human knowledge, is Google. It looks to you online like a really simple box, but it's not a simple box at all. Who in this room knows what the Simon was? Nobody? Come on. All right. Simon was the very first one of these ever created by IBM in 1994. You don't know that, but Google does. What is the gestation period of an elephant? Who in here besides Neil knows the gestation period of an elephant? All right, well, a couple of you were here earlier. It's 2 years. Google knows everything. But it's an incredibly complicated ecosystem of different websites. It's not just its own algorithm. It's also hundreds and hundreds of directories like yellowpages.com and CitySearch that contain information about yours and other businesses. It's sites like Yelp where people can say, yes, this is a great business, or no, don't use that business. They have terrible customer service. Social media properties like Facebook and Twitter and Foursquare where people, believe it or not, every day talk about businesses and recommend businesses to their friends and to their families and to their followers. There are any number of search engines. Google is not the only search engine. We'll talk about a couple of other really, really important ones like YouTube and Yelp and Yahoo. But the most important site on the web is Google+. How many of you here even know what Google+ is? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of you. This is an interesting summary in my mind of the statement I made earlier about how difficult this is for people who actually have a real life and have to run a business. Google+ was launched in 2007. Most people thought that it was in response to seeing the huge success that Facebook was having in acquiring users in the consumer space, and people thought Google wants to make a social network. And when 2008 and 2009 came along and Google+ wasn't being used by 900 million people, folks thought, oh, well, Google+ is a failure. I'm going to write it off and I'm going to ignore it. Google+ is the most important site on the web, full stop, for your business and any business like it. Why? Because the reason Google launched Google+ had nothing to do with wanting to make a consumer-facing social network. They don't want you to post your cat pictures to Google+ and share it with your friends. They don't care. What they realized was that sites like Facebook and sites like Yelp were gathering tremendous volumes of really interesting and necessary information about businesses. Where those businesses are, do people like them, how popular are they, what did they do? And Google said, for our search business, we need to have that information. And they created Google+ for the purpose of gathering that information. Google trusts itself more than it trusts anything else. So if it can get information about your business from itself, it will. Thereby, if you have a successful Google+ profile about your business, you're in way better shape than a business that doesn't. And that will reflect itself in your search results, whether you even realize what Google+ is or not. So what does that actually translate to? This is a reasonably successful Google+ listing. Why is it successful? Well, nobody's posting any cat pictures to it, but who cares? They have data about what their business is, where it is, what their phone number is, what their URL is, and that data is exactly the same as the data that Google can find on YP and on Facebook and on Yahoo, and that's enough to tell Google that it can be comfortable with exactly what this business is. That is critically important Google gold for your business, and it seems relatively simple, but for most businesses, it isn't. What you get as a result is you get this. You're at the top of the Google search results, which is ultimately the holy grail in many respects of being found. Another aspect of being found that starts to move into that second pillar of creating interesting content for your business is what's often referred to as AdWords or paid search or pay-per-click. This is the idea that you can buy advertising on Google for your business. Now, obviously, when people click on those ads, you pay a little bit of money and they come to your website, and that's all well and good. But the really fascinating part that people don't understand is that this is the first piece of what Google refers to as the wisdom of the crowd. The more people who click on your paid ads, that tells Google that your business is a relevant result for whatever that query was. And the money that you're spending on Google's AdWords is not just an investment directly in getting people to click on those ads and come to your website. It's a massively important secondary investment in teaching Google that you are a relevant response to whatever that consumer searched for. And it's the first, most basic way that you can begin to use content to be not just found, but to tell a story about what your business is online. There are much more colorful ways than AdWords to do that, and Troy's going to begin to talk to you a little bit about that. You heard a little bit about my background in creating websites when I was 11 years old. Troy's been using digital technologies to tell stories since not only did he get a genetics undergraduate degree, but has a master's in communication from Stanford, created the National Institutes of Health's first website, then went to AOL in what was 1995, built the first consumer-facing health website. Years later, went back to the NIH and taught the scientists at the National Institutes of Health how to use Facebook and social media for what they do. I mean, imagine something as sort of dry and complex and highly regulated as cancer research at the NIH. He taught them how to use social media for that and has been in the business of electronically telling stories for 25 years. And he's going to take you through a few more ways that you can use this for your business.